Well, I guess I'll say good evening. It is 9:39 p.m. here in Albuquerque, 21:39 in civilian time. Why I keep doing that lately, I don't know. You don't care what time I'm recording. But I didn't know whether I was going to make a video. I went to grab my first bottle of whiskey for the night, saw what it was, decided, yeah, I'll do it. Now, I ate supper a little while back, and Coke clears my palate better than anything I've ever tried. Better than water, better than any kind of crackers, better than bread. Don't ask me why. That's vanilla Coke there. And tonight's bottle is Dickel Bottled and Bond. And I was planning on a sipping and talking video, but I don't believe I've ever reviewed this on this channel. Now, if I have, I guarantee you the quality is not as good as the quality here, and this is not professional quality. You saw it, thoroughly amateur. So this is George Dickel. Let me see, exactly what does it say? George Dickel Tennessee Bottled in Bond Whiskey. And I don't know if you can tell it, but they use the Scottish spelling of whiskey with no E. Now, what makes Tennessee whiskey Tennessee whiskey? What differentiates it from bourbon? Not the mash bill. It has to be at least 51% corn, exactly like bourbon. Not the aging. It has to age in new charred oak barrels, exactly like bourbon. The same proof requirements apply. It cannot come off the still any higher than 160 proof. It cannot go into the barrel at any higher than 125 proof. It cannot go into the bottle at any lower than 80 proof. If it's bottled in bond Tennessee whiskey, it follows the exact same rules as any bottled in bond. It has to be at least 4 years old, has to be 100 proof, has to contain no artificial colors or flavors, and these all, by the way, apply to straight whiskey as well. And it has to age in a bonded, federally bonded government warehouse. In addition to all the other requirements. It also has to come from just one distillery and be the product of just one distilling season. And a distilling season is just half the year. January to June, July to December, those are the two distilling seasons. And I've heard, I haven't tried to find out one way or the other, but I've heard that bottled in bond requirements are the strictest of any spirit anywhere in the world. So far, everything about this Tennessee whiskey is exactly identical to bourbon. So what makes it Tennessee whiskey? You know, you'll see on some bottles, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, Texas straight bourbon whiskey, Alabama straight bourbon whiskey, Oregon straight bourbon whiskey. That indicates the state in which they make it. You can't put the state on there unless you make it in that state. But this isn't saying Tennessee straight bourbon whiskey, it's saying Tennessee whiskey. What's the difference? There are two differences. One is Tennessee law makes it Tennessee whiskey. Tennessee law sets the requirements for Tennessee whiskey, which essentially are exactly the same as bourbon, except one, you have to make it in Tennessee, and two, for most distillers, you have to use the Lincoln County process. Why do I say most distillers? Because Benjamin Pritchard, which nobody's ever heard of, but is an actual Tennessee whiskey distillery, been around for a long time, I don't remember how long, never has used the Lincoln County process, but by law it is Tennessee whiskey. What's the Lincoln County process? Jack Daniel's is the largest and most famous maker of Tennessee whiskey, and their way they do the Lincoln County process is roughly the same as everybody else's. Dickel. They take ricks of maple charcoal or maple wood, burn them down to charcoal, grind them up, put them in tanks, and the whiskey drips into the tank, and over a period of about 10 days it filters down and comes out the bottom. If I remember right, Dickel, on the other hand, lays out a very gently sloped trough with charcoal in there and runs the whiskey through that, and it'll be over a period of several days. So that's the Lincoln County process. Does that make it Tennessee whiskey? Well, no, because Benjamin Pritchard is Tennessee whiskey, but it does not use the Lincoln County process. And George Dickel, yes, I'm blocking my face, but I want you to see George Dickel, because you'll also see, in addition to a black label, a white label, and this blue label on these bottles, you will also see a gold label, George Dickel Bourbon. What is the difference between George Dickel Tennessee Whiskey and George Dickel Bourbon? The label. That's the only difference. Well, and the taste. I don't like their bourbon. I think it tastes awful. And I like their Tennessee whiskey. George Dickel runs all of their whiskey through the Lincoln County process. Then they barrel it, then they put it in the barrel house. It ages. They select the barrels for a particular batch, but there are some barrels that just don't, no matter what they do, are not going to fit into their profile. Those barrels become Dickel Bourbon. The only difference in the entire process from mashing in to dumping and bottling is the taste. What makes it Tennessee whiskey? The name on the label and Tennessee law. That's all. Now, I don't want to start a fight, but when you talk about Tennessee whiskey on a channel intended for beginners, and remember, this is whiskey for beginners, I want to provide information for people who are new to whiskey. When you talk about Tennessee whiskey, you have to define it, and part of properly defining it is explaining how it does and does not differ from bourbon. And I took a long time. I'm already at 8 minutes plus. Yeah, the way the camera's tilted, I can't see quite so well where I'm pouring to. That's more than I wanted. So here's an attribute of the Glencairn glass. That'll do. You can pour back into the bottle with minimum or no spillage. That's not why they designed it the way they did, but it serves that purpose. We then have George Dickel Tennessee Whiskey. It's 100 proof by law. It is at least 51% corn. This particular bottle is 12 years old. They had been selling it as 13-year whiskey. This bottle's 12. Does that mean a permanent reduction to 12? I don't know. I honestly don't care. The thing about Dickel whiskey is I get nuttiness from it. Some people will say they can tell when they're drinking blind, something from Jim Beam, because they get nuttiness. I almost never get anything nutty from Jim Beam. One glass out of a bottle, I might. One glass out of 2 or 3 bottles, I might. 3, 4, maybe 5 times a year I'll get it. But nuttiness is not a Jim Beam characteristic to me. It is for Dickel. And that's definitely nutty. A lot of people get what they call a Flintstone Vitamins note from George Dickel whiskey. I never have. I wouldn't mind it. I liked Flintstone's Vitamins when I was growing up. That's 3 or 4 times I put my nose in there. All the time it's nutty. In this particular stuff, it's walnuts. On the superior recipe, which is the white label, and the classic recipe, which is the black label, 80 proof and 90 proof, I always get pecans, but from this stuff I get walnuts. That's really interesting. Under the walnuts, I'm getting something sweet that I can't really identify. Maybe it's honey, maybe it's vanilla, maybe it's caramel. I don't know, it's just sweet. There is some graininess there. I'm definitely getting some corn. In fact, it's suggesting creamed corn to me. Yeah, there's definitely vanilla in there, but I think there's more sweet than that. I'm having to dig through that nuttiness. It's very nut forward on the nose. And so I'm having to sort out everything else out from that before I can even identify it. But it's a very pleasant nose. It's got a decent mouthfeel. Now, I regularly drink stuff over 100 proof. I'm currently getting down to the bottom of my 5th bottle of a 120 proof store pick from Kelly Liquors of Knob Creek bourbon. I like, not Jack Daniels, Old Granddad 114. That's the proof. They call it that because it's 114 proof. At different times I've had stuff up above 130 proof. Never had a hazmat yet. And they call it that because at 140 proof and above, by law, you cannot carry it on an airplane. They classify it as a hazardous material because if it catches a fire, it will burn. This would probably burn too, for that matter. But 140 and above, that is hazardous material, hazmat. Never had one of those. But I've had about 132, I think, is the highest I've had so far anyway. And I'm getting the same thing on the nose that I had before. I was getting honey mixed with the walnuts there on the palate, and there was some cinnamon in there, maybe some brown sugar. The nuttiness and the honey were so prominent that excuse me, that it was hard again to sort anything out. And I'm going to need to pause this and come back. My allergies are kicking in and I need something to wipe my nose with. Please stand by. Well, I think I'm paused. No, I'm still going. I'm sorry about that. I realized this is only the second time I've paused a video, paused the recording, and there is nothing right dead center obvious that it has paused. The button there, it's showing right now the 11, the pause thing, which to me would indicate that it's paused, but it doesn't. And then I realized when it pauses, when it's recording, down here where the number of the time is on the screen, the seconds are ticking over, it's recording. If it's flashing, it's paused. So I'm sorry about that. I could record over. I don't have any way to edit, but I could just start over. No, I'm a WYSIWYG kind of guy. I have no script. I'm not going to start over and try to be even half as good as whatever good I did already. Let me see if I can get anything more. Nose is the same. On that sip, the honey was definitely prominent, and it brought with it the other things, but it was definitely a honey sip. And I'm enjoying the finish so much that I want to talk to you about it. Let me get another sip for that purpose. Man, that's good. Immediately on the finish, bam, walnuts. It almost covers the whole of my tongue immediately, but it starts at the front and just zooms to the back, and then spreads, blooms, as Casey Allen of Beautiful Bourbon would say. It spreads, blooms to cover the entirety of my mouth. It's on my tongue. It's on the inside of my cheeks. It's even on the top roof of my mouth. Walnutty. There's oak involved there. I spent so much time talking about it, I need to get another sip to talk about it more. Bam! There go the walnuts. There's some oak in there. And unlike most oak, it's not turning to chocolate. Well, now it is beginning slightly to turn into dark chocolate. There's some spiciness on the tip of my tongue. I don't know if it's cinnamon or red pepper, or maybe it's black pepper, but there's a spiciness there. The rest of my tongue is kind of tingly, and the walnuts and the oak is becoming a little more prominent now, but the walnuts and the oak are just hanging out. They're not vanishing. They're right now in the center of my tongue, going towards the back, and just staying and staying. And I didn't look at the timer to see when I started talking about the finish, but it's still there. And it's been several seconds at least. And finally, the intensity of the finish is fading. The walnuts are fading out. And now I basically just have a little oak that is slowly fading. There it goes. The minute I swallow, those walnuts just explode in my mouth. And it's so good. Now, I mentioned earlier that a lot of people get what they describe as a Flintstones vitamin note from George Dickel whiskey. And I would presume that's the yeast, because if it was a property of the barrel, you'd get it from more places than Dickel. Which, by the way, where are they at? I know they're in Cascade Hollow, but I should know the town and I can't recollect it. Tullahoma, Tennessee. And, well, it doesn't seem to be on here. But as I look over the bottle, age 12 years on the label, distilling season spring 2011. So if it's 10 years or 12 years old, 2011 plus 10 would be 2021 plus 2, 2023. And I bought this on the 4th of August of this year. Cost $49.99, $50. People will look at a price that's da-da-da 99 and they'll say, well, it's da-da-da. No, it's da-da-do. It's up $1. It's like you say you're paying $2.50 for gas. Well, no, it's $2.50 and 9/10 of a cent. Essentially $2.51. You know, you should always round up on a price. You know, if it's $1.50, it's just figure it's $2, because there's going to be tax in there, and they do these 99 prices to fool you, to trick you, and most people just fall right into it. But where that started was looking for the place where it is, Cascade Hollow at Tullahoma, Tennessee. And by the way, you can tell a Yankee from a Southerner. We call it Tennessee. Yankees will call it Tennessee. How Southerners talk isn't just a matter of accent, and we don't have an accent. Y'all Yankees have the accent. But it's not just accent, it's pronunciation, it's rhythm. You know, there's a whole nother rhythm to how we talk. You know, we don't pakakaz and havid yad. We would never speak in such a staccato manner. Although there are more and more Southerners who are getting Yankified, and even if they still sound Southern to a degree, they talk so fast. Beautiful dark copper color there. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about North and South. I'm not here to talk about this and that. This is not a sipping and talking video. It's 23 minutes into a review. So let me sum up this whiskey. High class. For $50, is that what I said? I write things on the bottle there. Yeah, $49.99, because it's easier for me to keep track that way. And I do use a couple of apps, Booze app and Only Drams. For a long time I used Whisky Shelf, but since I got my new phone, Booze app and Only Drams are working the way they should. And Whisky Shelf does not allow me to give my the percentage it actually is. I have to choose between 100%, 75, 50, 25, and empty. So I've set that aside. But for $50, you can't beat this whiskey. If you like George Dickel, you may not. If you've never had George Dickel, I would recommend you try their 80 proof variety. It's the black bottle. It used to be number 8, and I guess people were thinking it was 8 years old. Well, no, it's not. That's the number of the recipe. Now it's just classic recipe. That's the cheapest one. Try that. If you like it, you can move up to the 90 proof, which is the superior recipe, the white label. If you like that, then you can move up to this. And they also have a barrel proof, I believe. It's either a single barrel or a barrel proof. I can't remember which. And it's in an entirely different shaped bottle. If you want to try their bourbon, you can. I don't recommend it, but I've seen any number of reviews where people like it. So just remembering that George Dickel bourbon is the exact same juice. It went through the exact same manufacturing process as the Tennessee whiskey. The only difference is the taste of it. So if you like their Tennessee whiskey, you might not like their bourbon. If you like their bourbon, you might not like their Tennessee whiskey. But that concludes the review. I didn't say whether I would buy it again or not. I will. This is the second bottle I've had. I'll buy more. I recommend you try it. And then to end the video, yeehaw!